Welcome to the Book Pub Podcast. This is a podcast where two women who have met doing theater and life decided to get together and talk about books and the authors who wrote them.
Yes, that's Lesley.
And that's Madeline.
And I have to just give us a little bit of accolades right now. We've just spent the last hour pre-talking before our
We're like, okay, we
podcast.
gotta record. Okay, we gotta record it. Okay, we really gotta record.
Yeah, we love to talk together. So
this is how the podcast formed, because we sit around and talk about books all the freaking time.
books, theater, life, politics.
Yes, exactly.
Emotions.
And now you get to join us on a little bit more of a structured journey.
Yes, because research was involved.
Yes.
So, hello, dear listener.
Hello. If you really like us, please like and subscribe and write a review, because we really need them. Anyway.
We'll love you forever.
Yes. And today we are talking about JRR Tolkien.
Oh my God, I'm so excited.
Yay!
Oh my God, and this has been a long time coming.
It is.
Our lives have been very busy.
It has.
Because theater.
Mm-hmm.
And Lesley and I are at this cast party thing, and she's already done the research, and she just is so dying to talk about JRR Tolkien with someone, and I'm sitting between her and this person she wants to talk to, and she just grabs my head and envelops my head into this full stomach body hug, so I didn't get any spoilers, but
yes.
She's been dying to talk about this.
Yes, I was like, earmuffs, Madeline, and she's like, what? And so I grabbed her ears.
You fully
hugged
bear
her face.
hugged me into it, and I was like, I'm okay with this. But I loved that moment of you are so dying to talk about JRR Tolkien.
Yeah. So, first we have a cocktail. So, our cocktail is called the Shire Tree.
Oh, shut the fucking front door.
Yes. It's inspired.
Shut the front door.
I know. Isn't that, you were supposed to cover up the cuss word with the front door.
But I just got way too excited. I do have to have a disclaimer. Having lived in New Zealand for 6 months of my life and just kind of loving everything about that country meets everything about the Lord of the Rings, I will get very excited about things. I will yell a lot. I will squeak. I will say cuss words. So preemptively, cool. I'm sorry. My excitement for this author is extra.
It's so extra. Okay, so I called it the Shire Tree. It's inspired by the Shire Flower by Nugget Markets. So I found something called the Shire Flower, and then I changed it.
Love it.
Yeah. So it is I want to say it's not 3 ounces of vodka, because I tried to make that and that did not work. That was too much. So I'm just going to say it's 3 parts vodka and then a little less than a part of elderflower liqueur and a little less of a part of lemon juice and a little less of part of apple juice, and you put all of the ingredients in a shaker until it's nice and cold and chilled, and then you strain it into your glass.
And it looks kind of frothy and pretty.
Yeah, and then it's all frothy and pretty, and it tastes yummy.
L'chaim.
L'chaim.
To life. Oh, fabulous.
Yeah.
That's a dangerous one. I would have 6 of them easily.
I know. We're so good. It's smooth, but it's sour.
It's like a lemon drop, but less sour.
Yeah. Okay.
It's actually a little bit more smoother, because you're getting those apple-y hints.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's got just a nature.
Nature. It's tree vibes.
Yes, tree vibes. Which works very well.
Yes, we all love our tree vibes.
Mm-hmm. So, on January 3rd, 1892, John Ronald Reuel Tolkien was born in Bloemfontein in the Orange Free State, which today is part of South Africa.
Okay. So, side note, the person that she was talking to was from South Africa. Yep. Okay, that makes sense.
I was like, wait, I need to talk to you. I'm doing all this research on South Africa right now.
Okay, that makes sense. I was like, what does this person have to do with JRR Tolkien.
Yes. JRR Tolkien was born in South Africa, or what is now South Africa, which can take
the Orange
you
Free State.
Yeah, the Orange Free State, which can take you on a whole deep dive if you're like, what is this? And then I'm just going to click on a bunch of Wikipedia links for a while.
Can I do like a quick what I think sum up?
Yeah.
So, because it's South Africa originally was settled by the Danish, and their color for some reason is orange because they have a holiday called Queen's Day, April 30th every year, and everyone wears orange.
Okay.
Now, I'm guessing that this has to do with the fact that the orange, it became orange free something. I don't know.
Well, it's like a free state. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. That. I didn't go into that section. I more went with like the whole like territory and changing things. And I was like, what am I doing? This has nothing to do with J.R.R. Tolkien.
Okay, so
I'm like, when did this change?
Ideas.
What happened here? Oh my gosh. You know?
We're not an actual history podcast. Go look it up.
Okay.
That was just my theory.
Yeah.
Because they do what they
That's
wear a lot of
interesting. I like that.
orange. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
My sister Allison was in was it? Oh, maybe it's not Denmark. I don't know. I don't remember. It's
One of those
northern
places.
European place. Mm-hmm. And she was there for her birthday, which is April 30th, and that's Queen's Day, and everyone was wearing just a lot of orange everywhere.
Interesting.
So there you go.
All right. So, J.R.R. Tolkien's father was a bank manager who had been promoted to the head of office there. And so he was actually, his family was from England, and then, got promoted, went down to the Orange Free State, and that's where he was born.
Cool.
So one of Tolkien's earliest memories was a scary encounter with a large hairy spider, which some say influenced his writing later.
Yes. Okay. Done.
I don't think he believes it. But
he doesn't believe his own experience?
He's like, I don't think that influenced me. I feel like that's what all the authors say. They're like, people will be like, hey, this thing, like their father died when they were young, and then they wrote all these things about father figures, and it's like, that didn't really influence me. I feel like that's what I keep seeing whenever one
of the most terrifying scenes in all of the Lord of the Rings trilogy is when Frodo gets swallowed up
literally
by the... Yeah.
Literally. It's like, oh yeah, that didn't influence you. Okay. But even before that happened, there's a story about how one time when he was a baby, he got lost and a family took him home and returned him the next morning, like some freaking Peter Pan origin story. They like lost the baby and this family finds him and they're like, we'll return him in the morning.
What? Mm-hmm. That is like very Peter Pan-esque and yet also really messed up.
Yeah. If you find a baby,
please return ASAP.
Yeah, go to a police station or something. I don't know. Like, be like, hey,
church steps. I don't know. Like, hello, found
like,
a baby. Not mine.
Maybe knock on some doors and be like, did you lose a baby? Can you describe it, please, before I hand it over? But like, I feel like you should find the parents if you found a baby.
This is also just making me think of the importance of being earnest. She lost the baby with the manuscript.
She put it in the handbag and the manuscript and the bassinet.
Yes. This is very earnest.
He was earnest.
Oh my God. Okay.
Who knows if he's even him? Okay.
I know, right?
Just the baby showed up. Oh yeah. Did you lose a baby? Yeah, we found a baby the other day. Here you go. Here's your baby. You're so welcome.
Weird. You're welcome. I found you a baby.
Yesterday, and then I got bored. I really didn't feel like leaving the house again. I mean, I just got home, took off my shoes. I was like, girl.
Wife made me a cocktail, man. Yeah. Like, dude, come on. Don't be losing your baby. I'd get it to you sooner if it wasn't such a baby.
Yeah, what do you think I am? The U.S. Postal Service? Please. So he had a younger brother named Hilary, who was born 2 years after him. Then the next year, the family took a trip to visit relatives in England. His father stayed behind for a couple extra days and planned on joining them later. However, he ended up getting how do you say it? I've only read it.
Can you spell it?
RHEU.
Rheumatism? Rheumatory?
Yeah, rheumatic fever. He got rheumatic fever and died.
Whoa, quick.
Yeah.
Okay. Sad.
So
it's Leslie. It's fine. We were expecting sadness. Life is just happening.
They just come to me.
It's normal.
I'll make it up if
it
didn't happen in the person's life.
It's like, oh, I'm sorry.
You had a happy childhood? Excuse me. No. We're rewriting this.
No. Happy childhood, oil, Leslie, water. She repels you. Me, I tend to find the boring childhoods.
So since the whole family was like in England already because they were on vacation and they also had no income, his mother decided to move in with her parents in Warwickshire countryside, which would eventually influence the Shire.
Oh my God. I totally see it. Yes. When I was there, I was like looking around. I was like, this is 100% the Shire. Mm-hmm. Shut the front door. Yep. I will refrain from cussing. I'm so excited.
But that was far from the last place he would live throughout his childhood. His mother would move them to the darkly urban Birmingham, where their house backed onto the railway line and eventually into the suburbs.
Suburbs of... You kind of fast forward there. You just left
Birmingham?
off in Birmingham. Okay.
I think. I didn't write that down. Suburbs. He moved to the suburbs.
Okay.
Yeah. Of
Okay.
Ohio. No.
This took a twist. What? Wait. Of Ohio. Okay.
So yeah.
No, not in Ohio. Still in England.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was around this time, 1900, that his mother became a Catholic, and Tolkien and his brother did too. His mother homeschooled both boys. Tolkien had learned to read and write by the time he was 4, and he was extremely interested in modern and ancient languages from a young age, practically mastering Greek and Latin by the time he was 12.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm like skipping ahead in my brain. I don't mean to be.
That's fine.
Things are making sense.
Yes.
You're making my life make sense.
You're welcome. Tolkien, quote, my own dear mother was a martyr indeed, and it is not to everybody that God grants so easy a way for his great gifts as he did to Hilary and myself, giving us a mother who killed herself with labor and trouble to ensure us keeping the faith.
He liked his mom.
Yeah,
She seemed like a, well, probably powerhouse mom trying to make it happen.
Yeah.
Dad dies because of rheumatic fevers,
Yes.
you know, etc.
Yeah. So, yeah, she's a single mom. She's like, I want to raise these kids right. I'm going to educate them and I'm going to become Catholic because that's cool. And I guess they were really supportive, like the Catholic congregation or whatever that she was like a part of.
Oh, yeah.
So,
That makes sense. Like
Yeah.
when you do feel lost, you want to find some sort of community that gives you hope and
help you with your
stability.
2 boys. Like,
Stability and hope.
yeah. In 1904, when Tolkien was 12 years old, his mother was diagnosed with diabetes and she...
Thank you, Leslie. So happy.
I'm not meaning to laugh. I'm laughing at Madeline.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. That could have been really messed up. you
I feel I like will like edit the podcast and I'll be like, God, I sound like such a bitch. Like,
No, I get where you're coming from. You're just like you're laughing at the fact that you love to torture my heart.
yeah. So his mother was diagnosed with diabetes and she ended up dying.
This
is horrible.
This is so sad. It's really sad. It's really sad. But you're just like, because you've become a cliche of yourself.
That's what it is.
You're laughing at the fact that you've become a cliche of yourself.
I'm like, yeah, how I write things. Yeah. So she ended up dying later that year, leaving Tolkien and his brother as orphans. It's sad. It's really actually sad.
It is really sad.
Yeah.
It's really sad. We're not being awful. We're laughing not because of this tragedy in a person's life.
Yeah.
We're laughing because Leslie is a cliche.
Yeah. It was like before.
Like this is like the 30th
they had
episode.
cures
36th.
for diabetes. It sucks.
No, it's terrible.
She shouldn't have
It's
died. She
terrible.
could, if she had insulin shots like they have now.
Even
like,
then, like
she would have
it's
totally
like,
lived.
Life with diabetes is not great, and like it's a terrible like disease that we don't talk about enough and bring awareness of, and people who suffer through diabetes have to pay an exorbitant amount for insulin shots and all this stuff, and we could get into it.
Oh,
What we're
totally.
laughing about is that Leslie has had 20 episodes, and 19 out of them have been so depressing that it's like, girl, come on.
There's something, I don't know. I'm just drawn to them.
Like,
I'm
I'm
gonna
feeling
do
numb.
someone happy. Lord of the Rings.
I'm
Woohoo!
feeling numb towards the sadness that you bring me. Versus
gonna
like
have
if
to
I bring a sad episode, it's like, oh shit, that's sad.
So, okay. So they live as orphans. They're orphans. They lived with a really like mean aunt for a while in a boarding house.
Yep. Because what else? What else would make their life more depressing?
Yeah. It's like a beginning of a Roald Dahl novel right now.
Even Roald Dahl was a little more hilarious.
Yeah. Well, yeah, a giant shows up or something, or you find out you have magic powers.
These kids are just like straight up like, oh, sorry. I just added that. Anyway.
Yeah, so they lived in this boarding house owned by Mrs. Faulkner. No relation. That's just her name. But their primary caregiver...
Well, can I say something?
Yeah.
There's a book for kids. And it said, "Thank you, Mr. Faulkner."
Aww.
So that's like read it. Aww. It's great.
There you go. So eventually their primary caregiver became Father Francis Morgan, who is half Spanish and Welsh, and who was their mother's spiritual guide and close friend before she died. So they get full on into Catholicism because, yeah, Father Francis is like their man now. They don't live with him. They still live in this boarding house, but he's like in charge of everything.
Yeah, so he's an influential figure. That makes sense.
In his early teens, he really upped his interest in languages, learning Anglo-Saxon and ancient Germanic languages, Gothic, and later Finnish, which I have a friend who knows Finnish, and that's like the most insane language ever. I don't think I could ever try to in my entire life.
Yeah, and we actually we talked about how JRR Tolkien was a linguist actually as of last night. So
nice.
This is like something that you should always talk about with people.
Oh, totally. Yes. If that's not clear yet,
I don't know what
by the time he's like 15, he's already like, yeah, I know like 13 different languages.
Some very rare.
Yeah, I'm really into like this old ancient stuff
so
that nobody does.
Take that to the next party you go to.
That goes well with my next sentence.
Cool.
One day, he found out that his cousins, Mary and Marjorie, had made up their own language. And eventually, Mary and Tolkien created a complex, constructed language called Nevbush for fun. Okay, and I'm also never going to pronounce anything correctly because I read things and I don't learn the pronunciation for things.
That's fair.
You know.
Well, these are very abstract ideas. So.
Yes, but even when I get to things that are like Lord of the Ringsy, like I'm not going to say whatever it is supposed to be because
you should have learned because you know people are going to be like, excuse me.
I know, so I'm going to try to avoid it as much as possible. But like even when I read, like it's like I've read Game of Thrones, I'm reading Wheel of Time, I'm like halfway through the third book. Like I have my own way of like seeing the word and how it's sort of pronounced in my head, and I can never really unlearn that. I don't care how many times I watch a movie of it or TV show or anything, I can never unlearn how I hear that name.
That's fair. That's totally fair.
Yeah.
That's totally fair.
So he's inventing languages with his cousin and he's like totally into it.
How do you invent a language?
You never tried to do that?
No.
Oh my gosh. My friend and I did that a lot when we were kids, where we would come up with this idea of like these different like elves and fairies living in the backyard and stuff. And like, we'd be like, let's come up with like languages for them. It's kind of hard, but it's like, it's really fun where it's like, how do you speak these things and how do you like maybe spell it out if you want to spell it out, or are we going to use making up your own alphabets too?
I just love to study the Romance languages, and that was my thing. I have existing languages, but that was always my thing. I was like Spanish, French,
I guess maybe
Italian.
If you're really into like things that are like, oh, this thing didn't exist anymore, so doesn't that mean that like something new can exist? If something can go out of existence, then that means something can come into existence.
Never thought that ever once
in my life. And therefore, I can create a language.
Nope. But I'm glad you did. So, yeah. Okay, now that makes sense.
For the most part, life at Mrs. Faulkner's boarding house was pretty great. Father Francis was paying for his education and looking after him. He had a great group of friends that would meet after school, and they would read each other stories or poems that they had written. It's like fun. When Tolkien was 16, he met the beautiful girl next door.
Oh, good. Yay.
Edith Bratt.
Oh, hi.
Hi. How's it going?
Hi.
Edith was 19.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so hi, how's it going? I'm 16.
You're too young.
You sure? I'm very mature for my age. I invent my own languages.
Cool. I want someone who can pay the bills. Thanks.
Right. So she and Tolkien became close friends because she was also an orphan.
Great. What a thing to bond over.
Yeah, you're an orphan. I'm an orphan too. Woo!
Yay!
They would hang out at a tea shop that had a balcony seating overlooking the sidewalk below, and they would throw sugar cubes onto the hats of people walking on the street below, because, this is during a time when hats were like, everyone had to wear a hat. If you weren't wearing a hat, you were naked, essentially. So they would just like sit there and throw sugar cubes until they could get them into people's hats.
Sounds fun.
Yeah.
She's 19?
She's 19. He's 16.
She's 19.
She's 19.
That's like 28 in today's terms for like matrimony.
Well, she's an orphan. She has like no prospects.
Okay, fine. Like sitting there like, okay, kids throwing sugar cubes at hats, fine. But she's 19. She's having to like think about her.
Nobody's like, oh, girl, you have to go get married. You're 19. You're practically an old maid.
That definitely happened.
Yeah, and
for 19-year-olds.
There was no one doing that for her. They're just like, yeah, you're probably gonna have to like get a job or something because you have no dowry to bestow on a husband.
That's fair.
So she's like, cool, I'll hang out with this 16-year-old and like relive my youth.
Oh, okay, I'm into that.
Yeah, Tolkien was so in love with her.
Obviously, she's willing to throw sugar cubes onto people's hats.
Yeah.
How do you not fall in love with someone like that?
I know. I would fall in love with that person. You want to go hang out and just like throw sugar cubes at people? Like not at people, but like drop them onto their hats. Yeah. Sounds like a fun game.
And you get it like slightly wet so that hopefully it'll stick.
That is genius. Oh my God. That's how you totally win the game.
Yeah. So you stick it in your mouth, you get the sweet, you take it out, you throw it, sticks. Their life is miserable. You have fun.
Genius. I wonder if one of them knew how to do that.
Probably. I mean, like that's specific. Sugar cubes is specific.
It's sugar cube. Yeah. Then they just fall
like
out of the bowl.
Berries or whatever.
Yeah, true. Well, the sugar cubes are free. They're just sitting there in the bowls at the coffee shop. So you get your coffee, you don't put sugar in your coffee, and you just like take the sugar cubes and keep throwing them.
Oh, that's true, huh? Okay.
Yeah. Tolkien's biographer, Humphrey Carpenter, quote, "With two people of personalities and in their position, romance was bound to flourish. Both were orphans in need of affection, and they both found that they could give it to each other. During the summer of 1909, they decided they were in love." Aww. When Father Francis found out about Tolkien's feelings, he forbade Tolkien from having any more communication with Edith until Tolkien became a legal adult at 21.
Holy crap!
Yeah.
That's so long.
I know. It's like you can't
even say like
do not
18, 17?
No,
just like wait a year or two?
Nope. Can't talk to her until, you've like...
He's 16.
Yeah.
That's 5 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time for a kid.
You're going to have
age.
to go to college. You can't no texting, no Snapchatting,
Oh, God forbid any notes passed.
Yeah, no notes passing.
Oh my God. No.
Don't even say hi to her in the hallway.
I've only been married for 3.5 years. That seems like forever to have to wait 5 years to have communication.
Mm-hmm. Nope, none.
3.5 years have seemed like a long time. 5 years? Oh, hell no. I'm moving on.
So, what did Tolkien do?
Moved
he
on?
obeyed his guardian.
Oh, God.
And he cut off all communication with Edith.
No, Tolkien, no.
So he ended up going to Exeter College, where he didn't do pretty well, partly because he just couldn't stop thinking about Edith.
Well, obviously.
I mean,
the denial of connection makes it that much worse.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole thing was kind of like, no, you can't be like in love now because you need to like educate yourself, and I'm paying for all of your shit, so like, you can't talk to her. And it's like, fine, okay, this guy won't pay for things if I don't.
I'm sorry. I'm fast forwarding it to like a 1980s movie. It's like 1983, and Tolkien's actually the girl in this situation, and the girl's
and her name was Baby.
Yeah, exactly.
And we had one beautiful summer out in the Catskills.
Yeah, and she ends up pregnant.
Okay.
I forbid you to talk about her. Or like 2 months later, guess what? I'm pregnant. That's like the modern reality of the situation.
On the evening of his 21st birthday in 1913, probably after one too many shots of tequila, like a normal person,
Not
like the 80s, yes,
1980s,
like an 80s kind of film. Let's go back there. So Tolkien wrote a long letter to Edith declaring that he never stopped loving her and asking her to marry him.
Oh, and it's in writing, so that's like for reals in that time. That's like basically a proposal.
It is
on
a proposal.
Steroids.
Oh yeah. Oh okay. Yeah. It's like, I love you. I've always loved you. I've been like thinking about you for these last 5 years. I cannot stop thinking about you. Will you marry me? And so Edith gets this letter and is like, wow, I am constantly inspired by you. That's why I live in this like cool place that I live in now, with like these amazing castles, and you should totally check it out because I know that you've traveled a bunch and I'm totally into like the fact that you traveled a bunch. And I actually have started to like kind of think about converting to Catholicism because like you're Catholic and I was like in love with the fact that you were Catholic. But unfortunately, I'm engaged to my friend's brother.
Please tell me you had that written exactly the way you just performed it.
Kind of.
Okay. Wow. That was like a... Encore, encore. What a juicy story.
Yes. But she also writes, however, I only got engaged because I thought you forgot about me. And so, yes, I will totally marry you.
She's got to call off that engagement. Oh my God, this is a telenovela.
It is. Oh my God. Yes. See.
Claro que sí.
So the next week, Tolkien takes a train to where Edith is. Edith meets him at the train station, and she returns her ring to that other guy and announces her engagement to Tolkien.
Boom chakalaka. She didn't even wait 20 minutes.
Mío.
Ay, Dios mío. Oh my God. Not even 20 minutes later.
Yes.
She's engaged to someone else.
Uy. So,
En español now. Oh, okay.
Let's take the subtitles or the dubbing off.
Yes.
So her friend who she was living with, quote, I have nothing to say against Tolkien. He is a cultured gentleman, but his prospects are poor and in the extreme. And when he will be in a position to marry, I cannot imagine. Had he adopted a profession, it would have been different. It's a very good way to say, like, you're basically marrying a homeless.
Bye.
Yeah, maybe she should still marry my brother or something.
Yeah.
They get married 3 years later in 1916 after Tolkien.
Holy cow, that's a long engagement.
I know, isn't that crazy? It's like
3 years.
Well, now we gotta wait. Like, do we really like each other, or was that kind of just like very impulsive?
Oh my God.
They're like impulsive, like, okay, like I'm in love with you. Let's get married. Yes, I'm gonna break off my other engagement. Now we're just gonna chill for a little while. I'm surprised they didn't like just run from the train station to a church and be like, dude, but let's just get married right now.
3 years later.
And the only reason really they kind of waited, I guess one of the reasons they waited is like Tolkien finished getting his degree at Oxford. He had to get a degree, you know. I was like, all right, marry
I love you. Let's get married.
Let's get married right now. Okay, wait.
Wait, I'm still like 19, so
Be nice.
I'm an orphan. I'm going to be betrothed to this penniless scholar right now. Great. What am I doing?
Yeah.
She's got to have some moments of like, what am I doing with my life? You're romantic. I'm realistic.
So he also began to work on his invented languages, creating Quenya. That's the language that the elves use in the Lord of the Rings. Qenya.
Zach needed to be here. He knows all of this.
Damn it, Zach.
Zach, get your butt over here.
Which is actually influenced by Finnish. And in 1915, after finishing his degree, he enlisted as a second lieutenant in the Lancashire Fusiliers. I don't know. Something British. That's not... Look, here in America, we probably just call it like the Navy and like the Army. Right. And they're like...
We keep things simple. We have like 36,000 Springfields in the country. We're not creative when it comes to names.
But it makes it a lot easier to pronounce for other people. Like,
Springfield. Springfield.
The Army. The Navy. The Marines. It says Lancaster Fusiliers. Oh, wait. That was totally Spanish, and I was trying to do like
we're still
English,
stuck
whatever.
on
Sorry.
Which, we were not making fun of telenovelas.
I love them.
They're very good at television.
I might not always understand what's going on, but I can't stop watching it.
But they're
I think
great.
it's like that should be like the new phrase instead of like it's like a train wreck. It should be like it's like a telenovela.
Yeah, but
you know,
train wrecks are bad.
But like the whole
People get hurt.
exactly. But you know when people are like,
Telenovelas
oh, I
just,
couldn't
good
stop
TV.
watching it. It was like a train wreck. You know, like the idea of like that people, if you saw a train wreck live in front of your face, you wouldn't be able to like stop paying attention to it. And that's why I'm thinking like instead of saying it like that, let's call it telenovela because it's like it could be bad, it could be good. It kind of fits where both, you know, not like
good.
I'm watching people suffering. Woohoo! It's like a train wreck, you know, like
That's true.
I'm taking joy in the suffering of others. Instead, it's like telenovela. It's like, oh, well, it's all fake, but I can't stop watching it. Like
It's so good, you just keep watching.
yeah. If you like back in the day when you could flip through channels, if there was a telenovela on, it's like
I always
I'm
watched it.
sorry, I'm stuck.
I actually appreciated my Spanish teacher because she always made us watch telenovelas.
Oh, nice. So yes, so he enlists in the army in 1915. So there's things going on in 1915.
The brink of World War One.
The
Okay.
Great War. I think it's also why they got married. I think honestly, if there wasn't the Great War, they probably would have stayed engaged longer, which is really kind of crazy when you mention the whole fact that it's like, oh, that was a long time for them to not
engaged.
Yeah.
Yes, we've not talked to each other. We're going to be married, but we're going to wait 17 years and then we'll get married.
She's like, God damn it, we just get a war? Oh, I'm sorry. I did not mean for that to happen.
People have to die for them to get married. God, what a sad thought.
So he was sent to active duty on the Western Front in France. In letters that he wrote to his wife, Edith, he would use secret codes using dots in his letters that he invented to let his wife know where he was and what was going on, something that was not allowed and would usually be censored. But he was I know how to do secret things with words and languages.
Wow.
Ha, 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 ha.
Cool.
So no one could find it.
I'm into it.
Yeah.
He's sneaky.
I know. He only participated in active duty for 4 months before succumbing to a typhus-like infection and was sent back to England. For the rest of the war, his illness kept reoccurring, and he was deemed medically unfit for active duty. A lot of his friends from school died during the war, and during this time, he took all of his experiences and began to develop the Book of Lost Tales, which he basically places historical events about England and his own experiences into a fantasy or mythology, and using some of the languages that he invented for the tales about elves and gnomes.
Is that a thing that we can read?
The Book of Lost Tales?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
Totally Tolkien.
It's like what he wrote before he knew he was going to write The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, but all is in the same universe. And it's all so basically another way of putting it.
I'm going to read that 100%.
Subtextually, what I'm saying is that somewhat of Lord of the Rings, somewhat of The Hobbit, he's influenced by World War One, and his experiences in World War One is what made that stuff happen. By 1918, Tolkien began looking for academic jobs. The first one he received was to be the assistant lexiconographer for the New English Dictionary, also known as the Oxford English Dictionary, or the OED, or also the greatest dictionary that has ever happened ever.
What?
It's the freaking Bible of dictionaries.
Yes.
And he was a lexicographer for that dictionary.
Wow, that's very impressive.
Okay, so while the Book of Lost Tales was never published in his lifetime, I did put it in here.
Because I was very curious.
I think that means it was published at some
Later,
point.
yeah. If it says in his lifetime.
In his lifetime, yes. I clearly wrote that for a reason.
Yes.
While at this job, he was part of the Exeter College Essay Club, where he would read pieces from it, and it was well liked by his friends. So, yay. By 1920, he had left his job at the OED and became an associate professor in English at the University of Leeds, but I will forever know this as his big nerd energy years.
Okay, I'm into it.
So he and his friend Evie Gordon worked on their own version of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, which is from 14th century, King Arthur. Yeah.
I know Sir Gawain and the Green Knight.
Yeah. The whole thing where it's the knight comes in and is like, hey, I'll let you cut me wherever, and then from a year from now I'll cut you in that same place or whatever. And Sir Gawain's like, okay, and cuts the guy's head off, and the guy picks up his head and he's like, see you in a year, buddy.
I haven't read it in a long time.
Okay, yeah, that's the story. And so then Sir Gawain has to live.
I downloaded it when Kindle and Nook, remember Nook?
Oh yeah,
the Barnes & Noble one.
Yeah,
first came out. I had a Nook, and I downloaded it because it was free.
It's like having a Zoom, and when everyone else has an iPod.
This was 10, 11, 12 years ago or something.
Yeah,
and I downloaded Sir Gawain
and the Green Knight,
the Green Knight, and I read it.
It could have been Tolkien's version.
It could have been.
Because he like was like, let me redo this because it's like written in like Old English, and he's like, yeah,
It could have been.
yeah. So he wrote that. He continues working on Book of Lost Tales and his invented elvish languages, and then he and Gordon form a Viking club for undergraduates where they read Old Norse sagas and drink beer.
Yes.
Sounds like a fun old time. Like,
thank you.
Let's read some Old Norse and drink beers. Like, we're Vikings.
I would totally join that club.
It's like Tolkien is the kind of person where it's like he'd be invited to a toga party, and he'd like just be like sitting there being like, let me talk in Greek the whole time to everyone. Like, why is everyone just like doing like keg stands or whatever? Like, we're in togas. Like, we're pretending we're ancient people. Like, shouldn't we be like speaking in Latin or Greek or whatever? Like,
yeah, for
That's
one.
him.
For two, he would totally do that. But for two, I don't really care about the toga party. I want to go to his Norse party.
I know, right?
I want to dress as a Viking, like a legit Viking, not the like opera cone bra
Oh yeah,
Viking.
yes.
I want to dress as like a legit Viking and be like a warrior queen and go to Tolkien's parties.
Oh
and,
honey, I have
like,
stories for you right now.
Oh god, I'm so excited. Okay, go. Lay it on me.
With his friend Gordon, they would also take a bunch of traditional songs and translate them. So like current day traditional songs, and then translate them into Old English, Old Norse, and Gothic because that's what they like to do. And eventually this would become a song for philologists. So it would be like taking like watermelon sugar or something like that, and then and be like, let's translate it into like Old English or like Norse or something.
So it's like that book that you and I definitely have seen of songs translated to Shakespearean.
Yes, right, exactly. It's that kind of thing.
Cool.
That's what Tolkien did for fun.
Oh, I'm totally into it.
I know. Before leaving Leeds, he had 3 children, 2 born while he was a professor at Leeds and one in 1917. So he has kids, like while he's also nerding out on like Viking Club stuff.
Totally. With his wife who's 3 years older than him.
Yeah, she's hot. By 1925, the professor of Anglo-Saxon at Oxford was available and Tolkien got the job.
Yay!
Though he didn't produce a lot of scholarly publications, the ones that he did were extremely influential, including a lecture on Beowulf that is seen as a turning point for literary criticism of Beowulf, even today. Woohoo!
Wow.
Tolkien also had a flair for the dramatic. In fact, this was the era of his life where that he took that big nerd energy and he turns it into endless hijinks.
Oh, okay.
Yes. He would often start his lectures on Beowulf by quoting the opening lines in Old English, which W.H. Auden, who was one of his students and would later describe as, quote, the voice was the voice of Gandalf. So he basically like walk into the room just like spouting out Old English. People were like, okay, I'm going to listen to this man because I'm thinking that's our professor.
Okay. Cool.
He was also known to pull a small green shoe out during lectures to convince his students that leprechauns existed. He also supposedly would dress up in full Viking gear.
Cool. I'm into it. I'm having a moment, so you need to finish this.
Okay.
Because, like,
He would dress up in full Viking gear and, quote, dress up as an Anglo-Saxon warrior, complete with an axe and chase an astonished neighbor.
okay, keep going.
Tolkien, quote, I have a simple sense of humor, which even my appreciative critics find tiresome.
So, because that was my whole struggle with that whole thing. He got into hijinks. I'm thinking, the classic flaming poop bag, egging someone's house. No. He dresses up in Viking and talks like Gandalf the Grey. So when you say hijinks, what you really mean is...
Big nerd energy.
Yeah. Holy crap. This is the most innocent man I've ever heard. Like, seriously. What? That was his hijinks?
I see it as hijinks. I mean, I guess you're saying that. I'm like, I think there's something crazy about someone who dresses up like a Viking and chases their neighbor with an axe. That's hijinks.
You never toilet papered a house.
I peanut buttered somebody's car once.
Instantly.
But
Way more
technically, peanut butter cleans your car. So actually
Nope.
help them out.
Doesn't matter. It's still annoying and gross.
Ooh,
and it takes a lot of work to clean off.
Okay, so one of the big things is my best friend in high school. We wanted to we were going to toilet paper this person's house. So I don't think I've actually ever toilet papered anyone's house. And we drive up to the front of his house and we're like in our like spy gear or whatever. And we realize he's throwing a party with all of his friends who we also don't really like very much. And all of their shoes are just sitting outside the house. So we stole all of the shoes. And then we had all these shoes and we're like, what do we do with the shoes? And then there was St. Patrick's Day. So we took all the shoes and we painted them green and we tied them all together and then threw them over a telephone pole.
Way much more hijinks than Tolkien. I like it.
I know. I think
That's
it's one of my
stuff.
favorite pranks. Like,
that's a good prank. That's like a legit good prank.
Yeah, because they got their shoes back. They just happened to be painted green. I remember like, and this is like a very like upper crusty high school. And I remember like a couple of them being like, oh, I mean, what if we were like poor people and we like, that was our only pair of shoes? Like, how rude that someone would steal our shoes. And it's like, sorry, your dad's a doctor.
You have several shoes.
Yeah, that person's father is a hedge fund person. Like, we're good. Like,
but that's the thing. It's like his level of hijinks is, I mean, I grew up in a very non-wealthy place.
Yeah, that would be kind of mean to steal people's shoes.
Legitimately, our entertainment for middle school was TPing. And I think I went TPing like 11 to 12 times a year.
Nice.
Yeah, it was
What
a
happens
lot.
to the toilet paper? I guess it just blends with the snow.
And we targeted one house like 8 times, I think.
No.
In like
Did they have
3
really
years.
good trees though for like throwing it up or whatever? I don't know. Isn't that what like the thing is? You throw it. I don't even know how you toilet. Like you hold it and then you throw part of it or something, or you just throw the toilet. I don't even know how you do it.
Yeah, so you get it to like.
I've only painted people's shoes green.
No, yeah, toilet paper is way too easy. My sister, I do have to say this story. My sister and her friends were staying the night at somebody else's house and thought it would be hilarious to TP our house.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
So they came back. My sister and her friends came back to our house. My mom and I are in the living room and we could kind of like hear them. So we waited. And then like 2 hours after they left, we go out and we clean it all up. And then we stick it in my sister's bed.
Oh my God. It's like Godfather.
With toilet paper, and she like lifts up the cover and there's like this mound of toilet paper.
Yeah, like, instead of a horse's head.
Was amazing. But still, much more hijinks than Tolkien ever could have imagined.
Well, I guess he's my kind of hijinks.
No, you're more hijinks. You'd be like, this kid's boring, like I need a little bit more hijinks. I want to go steal shoes, man.
He has a simple sense of humor.
Paint them green.
So it's also during this time that Tolkien met C.S. Lewis.
Yay! Okay, this is what I've been waiting for. Mr. Religious.
In 1926, they were at a faculty meeting together, and Lewis describes in his diary his first impression of Tolkien as, quote, a smooth, pale, fluent little chap who needs a smack or so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he was like, I don't like this guy.
He's too innocent. Sure, he chased a neighbor with like an axe, but like really,
it was all in good fun.
He just seems dorky and weird. Like, dude, come on. And I say that as a dorky, weird person. Like, if I'm saying it, then you know it's real bad.
But despite not liking each other at first, they had too much in common to not become fast friends. So here's what I like to imagine. Tolkien knows that C.S. Lewis is like this medieval literature guy, in that department. And so he's obviously really into ancient languages, as we know. So he's like, oh, this guy needs to be like my new best friend. So one day, Tolkien stops by Lewis's office and is like, hey, I got some beers. Do you want to talk about Beowulf? And Lewis is like, okay, whatever. But through these casual gatherings, the two of them realize that they have a ton in common. They both lost parents when they were kids. They both served in World War I. And they both had like fabulous love stories with their wives. Lewis, quote, it has become a regular custom that Tolkien should drop by on me on a Monday morning and drink a glass. Tolkien also shared his love for being silly. In one instance, they went to a party, which was not a costume party, dressed as polar bears.
Love it.
So if you and I want to go to a party sometime and dress as polar bears, I'm so in.
down. Yeah.
So you know how he had his like Viking beer club or whatever. He turned his like whole, I'm going to meet up with like C.S. Lewis on Mondays and talk about Beowulf. He called it Beowulf and Beers.
It hurts how much I love that.
Yeah, so he had Beowulf and Beers with Lewis. Like, oh, hey, honey, I'm just going to go hang out with my like new friend that doesn't know is my friend yet. And we're going to do Beowulf and Beers.
Yay. Just make sure you bring the pizza home.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Goodbye. I love you because you're weird.
Oh, thanks.
You know that's exactly how those conversations went.
So they both had a huge like influence on each other. One day, Lewis admits that he felt dissatisfied with atheism because, yes, C.S. Lewis was an atheist at one point. He was like atheist. He was into materialism, actually. And they began talking about mythology. And Tolkien mentions that the greatest myth of all was Jesus Christ, but how that's a myth that actually is tangible. And Tolkien asks Lewis, quote, to consider whether it is possible that one time this myth had coincided with history, whether one time eternity might have broken through into time. And Lewis is like, shut the front door, shut the fucking front door. To put it in Madeline terms, that is like the most amazing thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And he basically becomes a super Christian after that.
I've never experienced anything like this in my life at all. I had a slow jaw drop. I could feel my jaw slowly dropping. It was like not just like this like shocker. What? No. It was like this dawning realization that it was like, wait, C.S. Lewis was atheist? Wait, JRR Tolkien made him into a Catholic? Wait a minute. So what? I am blown away.
I know. Isn't that kind of crazy?
Holy shit.
What?
Like, he is the most renowned, like, Christian writer of our time. Like, what?
Because
like,
of conversation where J.R.R. Tolkien is kind of like, can't you imagine that, like, mythology could also kind of be real? And, like, don't you think that, like, sort of is what's going on with Jesus? And he's like, oh my God, my life has now changed.
So much so that he creates the freaking Chronicles of Narnia?
Yeah, exactly.
So what? Oh my God. And like, I feel like an idiot for being at the beginning, being like, okay, yeah, being him, like they're going to meet at Catholic school or whatever. That's what I thought.
He's like, I'm an atheist. I don't know what to do with my life. I don't really like this anymore. And it's like, let's have a conversation, but not in a, I'm a weird guy who just showed up in a button-down shirt and a Bible in my hand at your door. It's like, yeah, just like chilling with friends and be like, what do you think about this?
I'm done. I'll just sit here and listen.
So C.S. Lewis was also a huge influence for Tolkien and his work. So at the time, Tolkien had been writing some stuff that would maybe eventually become Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit as like bedtime stories that he would like tell his kids. He also was writing these tales to share with members of a literary club that he was a part of with C.S. Lewis that they called the Inklings.
I love it.
And it's here where Lewis was like, hey, Tollers, because that's what he called him. Tollers. Hey, Tollers, what's up? Your writing's really good. And like, maybe you should keep writing it and make it into a book. And Tollers was like, quote, only from Lewis did I ever get the idea that my stuff could be more than a private hobby. But for his interest and unceasing eagerness, I should have never have brought it into a conclusion. Because of C.S. Lewis, Tolkien was like, oh, maybe I will make this into a book. If these two people had never met, like, so much stuff wouldn't have happened. My childhood would be so different. Yes. Oh my God, are we gonna Freaky Friday right now?
We're gonna Freaky Friday. I can't even. Like, what?
I know. We're gonna Freaky Friday now with C.S. Lewis and Tolkien, right? Because we just like can't wait to wake up tomorrow.
I'll take it. I'm so into it. I'll totally wake up as either one now.
Hopefully we wake up when they're like about to be on the verge of going, maybe this is how they go dressed up as polar bears, because they actually didn't think of that themselves. It's because we, like Freaky weird, Friday with like, them.
Wobbly,
Freaky Friday / time travel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So eventually, though, this relationship would have a sour ending.
No.
Yeah. Basically, a lot of small arguments over their differing writing styles and methods would become too much to handle. Tolkien was a perfectionist and had a hard time accepting advice from anyone, while Lewis admired his work greatly. Tolkien didn't feel the same way about Lewis's. At one point, when Lewis had read him an early draft of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Tolkien called it, quote, a terrible book, as he did not like the mishmash of myths that Lewis used. He also felt that Lewis...
Yeah, but now I know why he did that. It's because he's like not an OG Christian Catholic person.
Yeah, he's like just finding his way.
Finding his way.
Yeah.
Like that actually makes a lot of sense and brings a lot of great perspective to the whole Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah, exactly. When everyone's like, oh, but there's like things that are wrong that are not the same. And it's just like, oh, but he's just somebody sifting through everything.
He's going through mythology and figuring out what's best for him.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God. I gotta reread all of it. I loved that as a kid. I loved it so much as a kid. And then I read like 3 years ago the Chronicles of Narnia, the Lion, the Witch, Chronicles of Narnia play. I was like, oh my God, this is like so blatantly religious. You cannot put it on in a public school setting. So I was like, oh no, terrible play. But I think it was because some like really uber religious person like took it, made it uber religious. Like we knew that it was like based in like
I only knew that when people told me that, and I was like, really? I don't really see it. But then that's what I think is the beautiful thing about it.
It's so not obvious, because I didn't even, as a kid, I didn't get it.
It's like the lion's Jesus or something.
Yeah, like the lion's Jesus. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, he was like sacrificed. And I'm like,
I guess. I mean, a lot of people sacrifice.
There's a lot of people sacrifice. Okay.
Whatever.
Yeah. Oh my God, I gotta reread it. Oh God, the lion.
They're really small too.
Like, but they also... I also started, I'm just going to throw in a fun fact. It did not start with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It actually starts with The Magician's Nephew.
I know, and I love that one. That's actually my favorite.
I love that. The silver apples and the pond. And oh, God.
I know. And you crawl through the attic and you're in the neighbor's house. I know, that's my favorite. I love it.
I just don't know why The Magician's Nephew gets so, like, overlooked.
It'd be hard to make it a movie, though, so I guess that's why no one, like, people don't like it.
And then they make, like, everything into movies.
Because it's so much more, like, in the kids' I don't know, whatever. Anyway, that is a C.S. Lewis episode.
Yes. Okay, fine. Fair.
Okay, so he also, Tolkien also felt that Lewis's religious teachings were anti-Catholic, and he disapproved of Lewis's personal life because he had become involved with an American divorcee at the time. So because of all these disagreements, like, they essentially stopped speaking to each other for the rest of their lives.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
What a bang.
Mm-hmm. So let's go back to the origins of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. As mentioned, some of it came from stories that he would tell his kids, but there's one legend of how one day when Tolkien was deep into, quote, the soul-destroying task of marking examination papers, when he noticed that one of his students had left a whole page of the answer book blank. Moved by God knows what, Tolkien wrote, quote, a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit. And eventually he started to piece together this story, even writing it out in an incomplete transcript that in 1936 accidentally came into the hands of Susan Dagnall, who worked at a publishing firm. She asked Tolkien to finish it so she could pass it on to her publisher, Stanley Unwin, who then asked his 10-year-old son to read it, and his son loved it, and eventually that became The Hobbit.
Wow.
And that is the story of The Hobbit.
Wow.
Kind of somewhat accidental. Him just like looking at a blank thing that one of his students left and just being like, in a hole there lived a hobbit. What's a hobbit? What is this? Maybe I'll continue to look at this. Yeah, and then...
Because he hadn't really explored hobbits before then?
No, he hadn't looked at, like, what a hobbit is. He just it was just, like, a thought that came into his head, and he, like, wrote it down while he was grading papers.
He's like, I'm bored. I just need to do something creative and weird.
Yeah.
And hobbitses.
Baby hobbits. So his publisher asked him to maybe write a sequel, and Tolkien started to revise some of his earlier work, which today is known as like the Silmarillion, which is like that big old, And he turns that into his publisher, and his publisher's like, yeah, this is not going to work. It's a little too like weird. Poetry's freaking me out, man. Like, can you just like write an actual sequel to The Hobbit? And Tolkien's like, okay, fine, I'll write The New Hobbit. So that's what it was kind of being like known as for a while, was like, I'm gonna write The New Hobbit. That's gonna be the sequel to The Hobbit.
God.
The New Hobbit.
But it's the Lord of the Rings.
Yes. 16 years later, during which his publisher, Stanley Unwin, retires, and that one 10-year-old son of his becomes Tolkien's new publisher.
What?
Yeah, the first person to read The Hobbit now becomes his publisher. He's like, I'm going to follow in my dad's footsteps, and I'm going to keep pushing this guy who I read that book of, many years ago, and keep pushing him to like write that sequel. But finally, the Lord of the Rings books are published in 1954 and 1955, and immediately they become like hugely noticed by the public. People either absolutely love the books or they hate them. The BBC does a 12-part radio adaptation. People start pirating paperback versions in 1965. And
There's a cartoon version. I grew up with the cartoon version.
That's what I remember too, is the cartoon
version,
of The Hobbit, though. That was The Hobbit, not Lord of the Rings.
No, I have a Lord of
the
the
Rings. Oh my
Rings.
God, you have the Lord. I
Yes,
don't think I've ever watched the cartoon Lord of the Rings. I only watched the cartoon Hobbit.
Oh, we gotta watch it. I still have it.
Oh my God.
I still have it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. We've all grown up with the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
In some capacity.
So Tolkien is completely shocked by the reception that the books are having. On one hand, he's become super rich and is flattered by fans who absolutely love it. On the other, it's now the 1960s, and he hears about groups of people that, are like taking LSD while they like read the books, and he's just like, quote, "That's not cool."
Okay. Fair.
Also, he was constantly receiving fans at his home, or worse, fans calling his house, sometimes in the middle of the night because they like lived in California, demanding to know whether Frodo succeeded or failed at the quest, or asking him like random questions about the books.
Oh God.
They're probably also stoned, no?
Right?
Especially if they're from California.
Yeah. California in the 60s? Yeah.
Yeah. So he and Edith move up to Bournemouth, an upper middle class seaside resort, which made Edith really happy because she was really proud of him being this like famous author, and she loved being this like society woman, like, cool. I'm going to entertain people at our house.
We went from nobody to somebody.
She's like, oh my God, I gotta throw those like Nora Ephron dinner parties that I've wanted to throw forever.
Yes. Love it.
Tolkien's biographer quote, "Those friends who knew Roland and Edith Tolkien over the years never doubted that there was a deep affection between them. It was visible in the small things, the almost absurd degree in which each worried about each other's health, and the care in which they chose and wrapped each other's birthday presents. And in the large matters, the way in which Roland willingly abandoned such a large part of his life in retirement to give Edith the last years in Bournemouth that he felt she deserved, and the degree in which she showed pride in his fame as an author. A principal source of happiness to them was their shared love of their family. This bound them together until the end of their lives, and it was perhaps the strongest force in their marriage. They delighted to discuss and mull over every detail of their lives, of the lives of their children, and later their grandchildren." Aww. I know, it's like so cute.
So simple.
Yeah, I love them. Yeah. They make me happy.
Yeah.
In 1971, Edith died. And so Tolkien moved back to Oxford, which he considered his home more than any other place. And 21 months after Edith's death, on September 2nd, 1973, Tolkien died at age 81. His death only created a small gap in his publications. While Lord of the Rings is his most famous work, he did publish many articles and translations from Middle English works until the day he died. After his death, though, his son Christopher Tolkien edited Silmarillion, and it was published in 1977, and Unfinished Tales of Middle-earth in 1980, and basically Tolkien's previously unfinished works kept rolling out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that was such a good story. It was so Tolkien of you. Should make just such a good story.
Oh, good.
Oh, I loved it.
I have a couple fun facts. I actually
Yes,
did fun
I'm into
facts.
it. Okay.
Tolkien was a big fan of the Marx Brothers movies throughout his life.
Gotta love the Marx Brothers.
Oh yeah, which makes sense with his like sense of humor too, of like just weird things.
Goofy, weird things.
Goofy, yeah. Despite not speaking, in 1961, C.S. Lewis nominated Tolkien for a Nobel Prize in Literature.
God, I love that. Yes.
Yeah.
Like, even though their career differences were differences,
yeah.
they could still like step aside and be like, no, he's a good person. Like, his work is good. It's just like we couldn't work together.
Yeah. One of his sons, John Francis, named for Father Francis, who raised him, also became a Catholic priest.
Aww.
Although Tolkien owned a car at one point in his life, he never drove and was known to be an awful driver.
Love it even more.
By the end of his life, okay, so then we got to go through the languages.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, so by the end of his life, he was well versed in numerous languages. So this is all the ones that he's at least like, I could talk to a lot of people. I could like order coffee in all these languages.
Okay.
English, Latin, French, German, Middle English, Finnish, Gothic, Old English, Italian, Spanish, Danish, Russian, Serbian, Swedish, Old Norse, and Old English.
15.
Okay, yeah.
You did some quickly, so
Not including all the languages he made up himself.
but like 15 like spoken languages.
Yeah.
Wow.
Imagine if he like traveled to America. He probably would have been like, I'm going to learn all of these Native American languages because this is so fun.
Yeah.
That's Tolkien. Woohoo.
Wow. Thanks, Tolkien.
Yeah.
I want to like have a snow day and watch Lord of the Rings again.
Yeah.
That's what we all do, and we just need something comforting. Let's be honest. Let's be real.
Yeah, I did that like a month ago.
Well, that was a good cocktail. I get the reason. It's mainly for the name.
Yeah.
With a twist.
Yeah.
So it's a tree instead of
Tree.
a shrub.
Yeah. Which I feel like makes more sense because Tolkien will spend a little bit too much time talking about trees. And so why not be like Shire Tree?
Yeah.
It's a Shire Tree cocktail.
Well, because like the trees weren't part of the
Shire flower is the original.
Yeah, but the Shire didn't really have like
trees.
the trees versus like
There's trees in the Shire.
I mean there's
just
trees in the
normal
Shire.
trees, so he didn't feel like describing them forever and being like, look.
No, but the Ents is what comes from it. So
Yeah.
and I'm into it. I'm into the Shire Tree.
Yeah.
So thank you, and thanks for listening, and
Yeah.
try not to judge us on our nerdiness.
Yeah.
Because we said we'd go
Well,
to
we are a book podcast.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
I think
sure
we
it's
definitely
like, it's
exceeded,
implied.
Yeah, but we exceeded something tonight when we said that we would go to parties in
Just
polar
as
bear
bold.
costumes.
Buying them
so-
tomorrow. I'm gonna
yeah.
slam on that buy button.
Yeah. So I think we've like even outdid ourselves.
Can't wait to wake up tomorrow and be like either C.S. Lewis or Tolkien. All right,
I
we're
could
ready.
see
We're
you
gonna
be
meet up.
more. I could see you be more Lewis.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess maybe.
Both brilliant writers, both brilliant people.
All right. Well, let's meet. I don't know, on the quad at Oxford. I'll see you tomorrow.
Can we bring some sugar cubes and get them wet and throw them on people's hats?
Yes. Hello, Edith. Why didn't she say that to begin with? Like. Sources for this podcast include TolkienSociety.org, Tolkien, a biography by Humphrey Carpenter, the C.S. Lewis and JRR Tolkien relationship explained by Ingrid Barnett, biography of Tolkien from biographyonline.net, and thefamouspeople.com.